Hey, so this is a little weird, but I really feel compelled to say something about this thought that's really been on my mind lately. And I figured most people wouldn't read it if I wrote it down, so wanted to just put it out there. And that is how Democrats really need to be aware right now of the heightened sense of combativeness that Trump has made us feel as a party. And this new heightened sense of combativeness really is counterintuitive to our goals as a democratic republic. Because for our democracy to work, people need to be capable of having respectful disagreements about facts and what those facts mean about the best way forward as a country. This is precisely why Trump wants us fighting down in the mud, where it's harder to tell fact from fiction. Because when we're engaging like that, he's much more likely to be able to convince us that it's better to just stick with him to keep America great. Don't look at the facts, look at those assholes. And the reason I bring this up is because of the way that I see supporters of different Democratic candidates attacking one another online. And to be fair, many of the candidates are doing an incredible job of remaining respectful and disagreeing solely on policy, but we still have to be careful because we're beginning to see some of the pent-up anger and frustration we're feeling from the Trump administration's injustices spill over into a fight that we're having against each other. And we're supposed to be having that respectful disagreement right now. Instead, we're starting to see these attacks. Now, Republicans certainly are not having respectful, honest disagreements. So if we don't, then no one will. And with all the fighting that Trump is instigating, it's harder than ever to rise above the bullshit, to understand what is actually happening in the country, to have a real conversation about the best way forward. And the crucial question that the country needs to answer right now is, who is the best candidate for us to choose to rise us above all the noise? So I wanted to talk about the top four. First, with Biden. Now, aside from my policy disagreements with the man, I think it's pretty clear that he can't be the candidate precisely because he's playing Trump's game, and really not even well. If you watch Biden speak nowadays, just about every time you hear him, he's saying something to the effect of, "I'm going to beat Trump like a drum." Now, by playing Trump's game at all, he's losing, but also by saying things like that, it's just very clear that Biden is too good of a guy to be as good at being an asshole as Trump is. So he's losing twice over. Looking at both Bernie and Warren, now they both unquestionably deserve respect because it is clear that they want to fight for other Americans out of a sense of empathy for the injustice that our system has put upon them. And it's admirable to see how long Bernie has been in this fight and how hard that Warren is fighting to make things right. But just by being in the fight the longest or going the furthest with policy does not necessarily mean that they represent the best way to achieve the bold goals that they're talking about. I've seen people talk about Pete Buttigieg as a wannabe Republican, which is frankly baffling to me considering his incredibly progressive goals and policy proposals. Things that he's talking about are including closing the income gap, providing equal opportunities for communities of color, making education accessible to everyone, and really just so much more that's exactly in line with the progressive movement and with people like Bernie and Warren, frankly. The difference is that he recognizes that Americans on both the left and the right can agree on these goals. And a lot of the attacks that I see that are coming at him from the left seem to be because he's not brushing off anyone that disagrees with him slightly as a Trump supporter, as a racist, or as the enemy. Because you're not attacking those that are against us, you must also be against us, seems to be the thought process. And I really think that the country and the party need a candidate that has the ability to bring the country together and a president that has the capacity to unify. Now, with all the insults and hate and noise being thrown around on social media and the news, it really does feel like everyone has retreated into a corner. So I can understand the desire to feel like, hey, everyone's already decided on their side, so we just need to pick our side and fight as hard as we can. And that's part of what actually drew me to Warren at first. Earlier in this year, she was going to be my candidate. But when I stepped back and thought a bit harder about the way that social media and the media at large worked, it was pretty easy to remember that what those platforms do is amplify voices that incite strong emotional responses, despite the fact that those voices are not representative of any majority in the country. If you look at the electorate at large, what you'll find is good people everywhere who simply want an equal shot at life. People who feel that they've been left behind, that everything in Washington is corrupt, and so when they see the corruption that Trump is putting forth, they just don't feel like it's anything new and they do not care. These are the people that voted for Obama and then for Trump. They may not be loud, but they are numerous. And now two of our major candidates, intentionally or not, are pushing a message that makes them feel that they are either with us all the way or that they are against us. Now, I know too many people that say anyone who voted for Trump is simply a racist, which is a drastic oversimplification. There is no single action we could take as Democrats that would more certainly push people into corners than embracing this thought process and this style of campaigning, and that is why Bernie or Warren cannot be our candidates. Now, luckily, we have an incredible alternative in Pete Buttigieg. When talking about actually achieving progressive goals, Pete said, "I believe that we can get there in a way that serves to unite the American people at the same time." Let's look at a way he talks about climate change, for example. Talking about farmers, Pete says, people need to know how they fit into the fight against the climate crisis. Not only do we need them to know that we are not going to harm them, but we actually need them to fuel the new type of economy that we're building. We need them to know that they can be part of the solution and that the government is not going to pressure them to be part of that, but pay them for it. Now, it's easy to understand the desire to tell people who don't believe that climate change is a major issue that they're simply wrong. Frankly, they are. But I challenge you to think of a single time you were convinced of anything by someone that was attacking you for holding your belief. It doesn't work. And Pete recognizes this, and his strategy working to bring everyone along to be part of the solution is not only the right thing to do, it's also likely to be the most effective. That doesn't mean he's not progressive enough. It actually shows that he's mature enough to see past surface-level disagreements to find actions to take as president that best serve the American people while also bringing them together. It means that he should be our candidate. So, thank you for listening to my little rant, and let me know what you think.